What's up guys, MikeCoco back here bringing you guys a new video on the Explore Floor 7. I have recently been able to complete Floor 7 and I wanted to bring you guys this guide. So let's get right into it, and I'm going to show you guys the formation that I have for Floor 7. This is a setup. So the idea here is, well, just to give you a brief overview of Floor 7. Floor 7 has a specific debuff that prevents critical hits for all your heroes, and that is the reason why you see Christine, is because her skill allows you to permanently critical hit the boss as long as the debuff is applied. So that's why she's there, preferably in costume, because with the costume on it means that every single hit will crit instead of only one hit being a critical. So that's why Christine's there. And the second reason why you don't see Sword Main anywhere in this formation, despite the fact that it was used quite heavily in I think floors 5 and 6, is because the mobs actually have permanent silence. And so they'll silence in columns, and because Sword Main draws a lot of aggro, the silence will target Sword Main, and eventually the shield will become useless because the shield is dispelled and Sword Main is silenced, and your heroes are basically dead. So with this setup, you're aiming for fast clears. You want to minimize the amount of turns because, as you can see, there's no healer here. To make up for that, I put high active rings and high active chest armor to ensure that if they do proc, they'll heal pretty much each other. And then you have Michael here on the end, pretty much to act as Sword Main, except he does have much better survivability compared to Sword Main. So we're gonna go ahead and switch some of the gear off just to go into the floor 7 mode, I guess you would call it. So I'm just gonna take off all of the white rings. I'm gonna replace them with level 5 heal rings. You don't need to go any higher than level 5, because generally speaking, if you put them in like that 4x4, they eventually heal each other. Albeit I did get lucky with the level 9 ring, but it doesn't affect things too much. And another thing that you want to note is that you definitely do want to stack defense. In this formation, you can clearly see that the main damage dealers are pretty much PA and Michael. So you have to ensure that the rest of these 3 heroes survive, because you need them on every single subfloor of floor 7 or area 7. So with that said, I highly recommend stacking HP and defense for your knights, putting any HP and defense jewels on any of the weapons. In this case, I'd actually take off this and put Elena into physical defense, because these heroes typically don't do that much damage anyway, so the higher tanking capabilities will allow this setup to be much more consistent. And that's pretty much it, I think. Michael is using a Dragon Spear with the Dispel gem. I was initially, the first time I was attempting floor 7 was without the Dispel gem, and it worked well. And the reason why is because you're going to see soon that the specific mobs will silence in a column, and what that means is that Michael will not be able to use his skill. And so if he procs the normal attack, and that was not good, if Michael procs with his normal attack, he can get the shield back up, a semi-shield. So the issue with floor 7 is that A, you don't have crit, which is really annoying. B, the mobs actually hit very hard if they crit. As you saw there, the mage crit my Zhao and he died turn 1. And it can happen sometimes. It's just unfortunate when that happens, because if they don't crit, they don't actually hit that hard. So as you can see, the heal rings trigger, everybody's healed. So basically this results in me not having to require a healer. So actually I should show you guys the initiative first before I go on any further. Jesus, really? Okay, I'll show you guys after this one. So the idea here is that you have enough fury for Michael to start with his shield. And that way, because the first turn the mobs do not prevent critical hits, the first turn you'll be able to deal massive damage because your Michael will not have that crit debuff. But as soon as this mob specifically comes into play, then then it will pretty much crit debuff all your heroes. So at this point, depending on whether or not your Michael's shield is dispelled or not, or breaks through, Christine will use her skill and apply that critical debuff, which will allow all your heroes to crit after. And that's pretty much the idea. The reason why I say you don't need a healer most of the time is because the silence... Are you kidding me? Someone tell Legion to stop advertising these pop-up ads. They're so annoying. Okay. Anyways, the idea why you don't need a healer is because the silencers will generally go for Michael. Occasionally they will go for one of these two columns, but most of the time they will go for Michael. So the only thing you need to actually worry about is this thing. And on some of the higher floor 7 floors, subfloors, 2 of these will spawn, and that's when things get difficult, because then they get hit for a lot. So as you can see, with this, you're aiming for very quick clears. You don't want to drag out the battle too long, because... Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, on behalf of Legion, I'm very sorry for their paid advertising. This team is pretty much all free to play accessible. There's only one mythic hero, and by now, with the new event, everybody should have, I think, 3 Britannia chests. So this should definitely be something that is accessible to all the players. But anyways, aside from Nexon advertising, the reason why this formation is set up like this is because, generally speaking, the boss will focus Michael. And a lot of the bosses hit in rows, columns, or infinite crosses. And what that means is if you put Michael here, pretty much only he'll get hit. And that's fine, because he got the Phoenix skill, he has pretty much good defense and tanking ability in general. So there's not a lot you have to worry about. So I don't really mind if he dies here, because the Phoenix invulnerability will prevent him, will grant him at least another life. So the only trouble with this is that on certain floors where the boss hits in a 3x3, are you kidding me? On certain floors when the boss hits in a 3x3, PA does in fact get stunned. And what that means is, instead of switching, or instead of using Zhao with a Fury Spear, you will have to use a Dispelled Spear. So the reason why I quit there is because occasionally AI acts up, and if you don't end up hitting all the people in that column you saw there, Michael will target that. We don't want that, because that means the boss is losing damage. Like, we're not aiming at the boss specifically, so that's why we want to quit and then just restart, because most of the time Michael will in fact hit the boss. So here's the initiative. Zhao's at 100 because on the first turn there's gonna be pretty much everyone. All the mobs are there, which means that you can get a full column Fury Steal. So that's why you want his skill at 100. Claire is only here for additional Fury. I suspect that she's not entirely needed for like a fully optimal build. You could probably build without mythical Claire, so you don't have to start with Grudge. But honestly, having Claire here is just easier. So, and there's no like good substitute for her anyway. Like, putting in another damage dealer might help, but in this case we're already clearing that quickly, so I don't think it will make too much of a difference. Christine and Michael are at the very end. The reason why is because occasionally, if you manage to steal enough Fury, Christine can actually apply her crit debuff on the first turn instead of the second turn. And Michael obviously gets enough Fury to use his skill. So that's the general idea. Initially, I had like this formation, but the issue with this was that those silencers, they seem to prefer like heroes that are up front, and what this caused was silence on these 2 columns, which you don't want those to happen because you need them for the utility. And so when I switched them to this way, they seem to aggro Michael a bit more. Like, even in this case, Michael drew the aggro, but for some reason they just weren't targeting him. So yeah. So for pretty much from floor 7-1 to 7-7 or 7-9, everything's pretty much easy. You can use the same team, nothing weird goes on. Actually, right now there is a glitch. The dispel gem actually hits in a column. I did send Nexon a 1-to-1, and they said it's supposed to hit in a column, even though it says it hits in a 3x3. And I believe in Kalo it also hits in a 3x3. So I don't know what Nexon's smoking, but there's something wrong with it, and I don't know. So pretty much, okay. So there you see that column got aggroed for some reason, whatever reason, I don't know. But it does happen, so you just want to retry. And there was something I was going to talk about and I forgot. Alright, so the reason why this works is simply because of Michael's damage. If you don't have Michael's spear ranked up very high, I'm not entirely sure if this will work, but it's highly recommended because the Dragon Spear is just so useful, and adding a Dispel Gem just brings him that much more damage. So I would say it's definitely a good idea to use him, or at least start building up a very good Michael Spear. So again, they're silenced for some reason, but it doesn't matter because there's the crit debuff right there, and Michael is gonna probably crit with his skill. Actually, will definitely crit, so there we go. So initially, the reason why floor 7 was hard was because we didn't have such an influx of damage. The first time I was trying it, we didn't have any EX gear, we didn't have any legendary gems, we didn't have the Dragon Spear, so pretty much all we had was the Dispel Spear itself, and that's pretty much it. I don't even think we had jewels at that time either. That's why it's pretty hard. Anyways, again, pretty normal stuff. The heal proc applies. As you go onto like the further floors, you start noticing that you can't 2-turn kill anymore, but it's pretty much still fine if you can't 2-turn kill. Alright, so are we at 7-7 or are we at 7-8 or 7-9? There are like 2 mini boss floors I would consider. Okay, so this is the first I guess gatekeeper floor, the sub gatekeeper floor. It's not the major one. The reason why is because Taehu actually dispels, and it will pretty much always dispel the shield on Michael, which can often result in Michael dying very early. That's the reason why Taehu is fairly difficult. It was the initial gatekeepers floor, but once we received the huge damage buff, you know, when the stats were changed, we got all this stuff to increase our damage. It wasn't too bad because you were able to kill Taehu within like 2 to 3 turns. It was very quick. So after that, pretty much, it wasn't a huge issue. And I believe, yeah. So I would liken this to probably something like the floor 6 version of Remy, because Remy also dispels. Now here, hopefully, okay, so Claire dies here, which is, it's bad. As you saw there, as you go up the tower floors, or not tower floors, explore floors, you get 2 of those mobs instead of just 1, obviously to make it harder. At this point, with the stat rebalance and the change in like HP and defense, I'm still unsure whether or not to stack HP or defense. I find defense very difficult to stack. Like, I'm adding all this defensive gear and it's going up by like a few 100,000 points at a time, which is, it's a struggle. HP seems to be easier to stack, but I'm still unsure whether HP at this point, like if 3 mil HP defense is sufficient, or if I should be aiming for 4 mil. And to be honest, you could probably set up these 3 guys here with 3x3, which is your typical defensive gear. That's probably better that way because you just need them to survive. So now hopefully Michael doesn't die. Alright, so he doesn't die, and he should be able to get his skill off, and Taehu is done. So previously, when I was doing this floor, it used to go up to like 6-7 rounds, simply because Michael didn't deal enough damage. But with the addition of the Dispel Gem, things really change a lot. Alright, so he's probably gonna target this column, so yeah, that's a bad idea. We want to skip or like retry. I would say floor 7 is actually probably easier than floor 6. Floor 6, the Remy floor, is just really annoying because it dispels your entire team, while Tehu only dispels the aggroed hero. And one thing that I still haven't optimized in this setup is 7-10. Obviously, the last floor, the boss floor, always has a huge amount of HP, so I still haven't figured out how to, you know, completely tank. I think the last time when I made it to floor 8, my Claire died on 7-10, which it's not great because I could have used her in floor 8, but I'm assuming more tanking gear is probably better in that sense. Speaking of gear, actually, all of these guys are Mythic rank 4, so that means they have the maximum strength stats, I think, or like the tanking stats. Zhao's still at level 120 instead of 125, and I find that if you rank them to the 125, you could get past having to, you know, level up all your gear to level 20 on Rune Essence. The only heroes that have passed level 20 gear are Claire and Christine. Claire only has a level 20 helm, and I think Christine has 2 level like 19 or something boots and thing. Alright, so here's the floor that's pretty much a gatekeeper's floor. Definitely we'll need Zhao to switch off into dispels spear, yes. And the reason why, you'll see in a little bit later, but the reason why is because, well, I'll just show you guys really quick. The boss, the War God, will target Michael in a 3x3, which means that PA is susceptible, and if PA doesn't get the white proc off his ring, then he's stunned and he's stunned. So that's why we have Zhao here. He has a permanent dispel, so in case this guy gets stunned, he will dispel him and he will dispel him. So it's kind of like a chain of events going on. And yeah, let's go into it. Now, because he did switch off into the Dispel Spear, it does mean that we're going to get a little bit less Fury, but one thing I noticed was that on this floor, Fury doesn't seem to be a huge issue, and as you can see here, this is the thing I'm talking about. PA gets stunned, Michael gets stunned, and there's no one to heal. So that's why that's there. Again, the boss or the mages deal a lot of damage, so you definitely do want to avoid that. The one advantage of having them stunned actually is that Chris is able to use her skill first, which means that Michael is able to actually crit on his attack instead of just non-critting. So there's one tiny advantage. Alright, so the 2 boss mages will spawn. If we can tank this, then it's pretty much a win. There's no reason that we should die here. Okay, and Zhao, unlucky. This is a floor that is definitely the gatekeeper's floor because you have to pray to RNG a little bit, definitely. You will have to pray that your rings proc, and that's pretty much a major thing because by giving Zhao a Dispel Spear, you're pretty much free from worrying about getting permanent stunned because there's no way that's gonna happen. So all you have to worry about is getting your heals off, and in this case Zhao just got hit like crazy hard. I don't think we'll survive this just by the looks of it because of his HP. If I had a choice, who would I substitute? And for some reason Chris probably used her skill on one of those mobs. The thing to note is that Chris actually it doesn't apply the crit debuff to every single target that was hit. It's only applied to the hero that was selected, or the enemy that was selected, in fact. So in some cases you might see that Chris will not apply the critical debuff, the exposed weakness. As for alternatives, like who I would replace, I mean, I know a lot of builds use Remy, but if you put in Remy, you have to kind of like take out one of these 3 heroes here because Chris is absolute mandatory for floor 7. There's no way you can get past floor 7 without Chris with costume. So that's definitely necessary, and I would say PA in this case acts as a mini Remy, I want to say, because if he doesn't get permanent stunned, he's able to apply a dispel in a 3x3, and the healing goes on in like a cross formation. So I guess you could say he's kind of like a budget Remy in this case, but of course he deals much more damage, and that's what I'm worried about. If I sub in Remy, will I be losing that much damage? I guess with a fully optimal ability could do without Claire and put in Remy for better consistency. I could see that happening. But at this point, the consistency is not terrible. It's just this one floor. Like every Explorer area, there's always going to be a specific, what do you call it? Like a Gatekeeper's floor. And just so happens that this is it. Alright, so if Claire can tank it, it looks like we could make it. As long as Claire doesn't die, and hopefully they do not crit. Alright, it's looking bad because PA used proc the white ring instead of a heal. Alright, so again, it's going to take a lot of tries. Preferably just turn on quick battle. If you have at least like fast fingers, you can hit retreat, and you just see whether or not you're able to complete it. Alright, that was a pretty bad run because all the shields procced. One way you can subtly increase consistency is by using leg gear with lower level actives on everything except for the chest. Because to be very honest, the other active effects on leg gear is not even that great. Like the helm defense increase, not that great. Critical increase is definitely the most useless one. Because it provides no defensive boost whatsoever. And gloves provide a shield, but the shield isn't too useful. Now hopefully we survive this. Alright, never mind. So yeah, as you can see, like the the support heroes, they're dying often. I would definitely try and EX their gear if possible, just to make them tankier, because it's definitely close for them being able to tank it. It's just that they're missing that little bit of, you know, HP or defense or whatever. And again, shields procced, not a good idea. Now, I do want to talk about the other version of this build, which is the ones that Pain players have access to. That build uses Ela, which is far more consistent, and like I mentioned earlier, the reason why you cannot use Swordmane is because of his aggro drawing, and that's why like I see a lot of people saying Swordmane is a lot better than Ela. That's just like not true, because the enmity draw is it actually screws up much more than you think. You might say that, you know, there's a attack debuff, but at this level where they hit this hard, an attack debuff isn't even that useful, to be very honest. And the enmity draw definitely screws with the aggro of the AI. So like definitely I would say Ela is the way to go. If you have Ela, definitely use her. And actually on floor 8, I think one of the floors is actually, I don't know, I feel like it's very difficult, probably near impossible to do without Ela at this point. Alright, so actually I don't know how we were able to deal that much damage. Actually, if Chris dies, yeah, never mind, jinxed it. So hopefully this doesn't turn out to be another hour-long video like the last floor. Hopefully it's faster and we actually get some decent procs on the rings. Jeez, one hit kill. That's crazy. Those mobs are like, that's pretty much why people use Ela, because those mobs are ridiculous. If they crit extremely hard. For no reason either. I have no idea why they crit that hard. Like that, look at that. They took out Chris and Claire on the first turn. It's crazy. Alright, this one's looking a little bit better because our HP is looking pretty good right now. It's not looking that bad. Looks like we should be able to tank next few hits. Although oh no, why did they... Actually, if they aggroed him, it makes it better because Michael can... Oh, come on, we're so close! No. That was so close. Look at that HP bar. Ugh. What's more depressing is that my Michael is already like pretty much maxed out in terms of attack. So even that little bit of attack wouldn't, like nothing would have made up for that. Maybe PA. At this point, PA is still using a Radiant or like a Tower sword. I will eventually switch him off into a Legendary or Mythic sword. Just to increase damage and, you know, it just helps more. But until I get another Dispelled gem, you know, it's just gonna have to be like this for a while. Hopefully we don't die. Alright, there we go. They didn't crit. And 7-9 over. Alright, so this is the last floor, 7-10. To be very honest, I only cleared this floor last week, so I have no idea how it will go this week. All I know is last week Claire died very early. God knows why. I don't even know. Now this floor actually is a little bit better. We don't actually have to switch off into Dispel. Or we can switch back to Fury. Because the boss Uriel doesn't stun. He only provides or attacks with a attack debuff. So just to gain that extra Fury back, I'm going to use the Fury Steel Spear. And let's get on with it. Now, this is pretty much the only floor that you're going to experience a very high turn count because it just has so much HP. It's pretty much impossible to clear it that quickly with this setup at least. So the one advantage to this is that Uriel hits pretty weak. He provides, I think it's boss damage. I'm not entirely sure. But it's fairly simple. Now, in some cases where like they spawn in this specific position, they could silence some of these guys here, but I don't know. It's just chance at that point. If you don't get lucky, then they'll silence. Now, if Claire survives this next turn, we should be able to... We won't lose her, and we can at least clear the floor. Alright, so Claire dies. We'll see how we can go. I'm not sure if we can actually successfully clear it or not. Okay, we did. So Claire dies. The issue, I don't know. She just needs more gear, to be honest. Unlike Christine, she's only using one piece of past level 15 gear, which is this. And her HP is like 1 mil lower than Chris's, which is, it could explain why. And I don't know, do her knights actually provide any defensive boosts? I know Chris knights provide no defensive boost whatsoever, which makes her very squishy. But I don't know, putting Gabe in here might be better, or just like EXing some of this gear could be useful. This one's already at EX. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for floor 7. I don't want to drag this video on for too long. The consistency is an issue, a little bit of an issue here, because you're pretty much reliant on rings to heal. But at this point, I don't see another better way to attack this floor, because current healers that are non-mythic season heroes, they don't heal that well. Like Ione, even with a what's her special staff that I upgraded to level 140 and an int ring, like she only heals like 2 million HP, which is pretty much nothing. Of course, you could increase this to 30, but that's a huge waste of rune essence just to get more heals, you know. So I'm not exactly sure what to do with this. Even Jury, well, I don't have a good tome on her anyway, but neither of them heal particularly well, especially because if you look at her stats, they might get better at level 125, but her int is like 60,000, while like some of the higher tier healers already have like past that. I don't know what Remy's is yet. But yeah, that's pretty much it for floor 7. Next video, probably gonna tackle Abyssal Inferno, if not the secret rooms. I'll probably do like a hybrid of both of those. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Peace.